You're listening to Psych with Mike. For more episodes or to connect with the show with comments, ideas, or to be a guest, go to www.psychwithmike.com. Follow the show on Twitter @PsychWithMike or like the Facebook page @PsychWithMike. Now, here's Psych with Mike. Welcome into Psych with Mike Library. This is Dr. Michael Mahan, and I am here, as always, with my friend and colleague, Mr. Brett Newcomb.
Buenos dias.
How are you?
I'm good.
So I have saved the best for last.
Well, that's a good thing to do. Did you learn that as a child?
No. No, I could never do that as a child.
I always wanted to eat dessert first.
Yeah, absolutely. No. But I cannot even remember. So if we go back in history, I've known you for, I guess, almost 30 years now, for a long time.
Yeah.
And the way that the relationship began was that you were a professor of mine in graduate school, and I can't remember the first time that you said to me, choices paralyze, but I will bet you it was within the first week of our association, because the first class that I ever took of yours was group counseling, and I know that at some point in that class you said that. I bet it was within the first week of class, and so you've been saying that to me for as long as I can remember.
And you're still frozen.
I'm still frozen.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I've done my job.
But what is so funny about this is that it's something that everybody, whether you recognize or not, everybody can understand and has some connection to. Because when my family, like tonight, I asked my wife, I was gonna make dinner tonight. My wife said, "Oh, I've got some running around I want to do. I want you to go with me. So we're just going to get something. So we're going to go out tonight." And at some point, one of us is going to say to the other, "Where do you want to go to eat?"
Right.
And the other one's going to say,
"Oh, I don't care. Where do you want to go?"
Yeah. Right. And so we live in St. Louis, which is actually becoming kind of known as a foodie town. And so there are a lot of different places that you can go to eat in St. Louis. And out of all of these, let's say there are 1,000 places to go eat within 25 miles of our current location. Out of all that, we can't figure out where to go to eat.
Yeah, so you often end up going back to the same 3 or 4 places that you always use.
Right. Yeah. And so when we think about that, I mean, it would seem, obviously, counterintuitive that the more choices that you have, the harder it is to make a choice. But that's actually a thing, and it's actually a thing that's been tracked in psychology for a long time. So tell me about that. Why is it so hard to make a choice the more choices you have?
Fear of being wrong. Fear of having other people decide that you made a bad choice. Two different things, 2 different fears. One, my own fear of being wrong, but also fear of excluding. If I choose, then I also choose not something else. What if I want to keep that on the table? So the longer I hesitate in committing to a choice, the more options I appear to have.
Right.
And then one of the sidebar pieces of that is frequently we develop, under the load of all of that anxiety, we develop an inability to differentiate. All choices begin to have the same weighted value, but not everything is the same. So we may have to make decisions that are more serious in terms of life consequences, but we bury them under inane decisions that don't have life consequences.
Okay, now that actually is something that I'd never considered. So talk to me a little bit more about that. So the longer that you ruminate on the choice, the less that the distinction is apparent?
Yes. Yeah, and the inability to weigh the differences among them. So if and I used to tell clients all the time, not choosing is a choice.
Right. If you choose not to decide, you still have made a choice. Getting the rush.
Yeah. But so
Bathysphere.
I'm sorry.
That's the name of the song, Bathysphere.
I couldn't hear you while I was talking.
I'm sorry.
So I'll wait. if I'm experiencing anxiety to the degree that it's interfering with my ability to function,
Uh-huh.
the assumption that I would make as a counselor hearing somebody say that to me is there are choices that need to be made that you are not making.
Mm-hmm.
So can we explore that? And my client would often look at me and go, why are you wanting to talk about that? Let's talk about my anxiety.
Right.
Well, what's driving that bus? I don't know what you mean. And so then you start talking about their choices, and they run through this litany of choices. I don't know what color shoes to wear with this suit, and I don't know if I should move to California.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Right.
they're not the same weighted value.
Right.
But they are if
Yeah.
they're used as a block.
Yeah. So what I just heard you say, and then I'm going to
Yeah.
ask you if this is
All right.
if this is accurate. So you were saying that the longer we ruminate on the choice, the less that the distinctions become obvious, and that the reason that that happens is because we are naturally going to try and regulate our own anxiety, and that's a part of that process. So our minds are trying to regulate the anxiety, the discomfort, the cognitive dissonance that we're experiencing, and as a result of that, the distinctions between the choices become less obvious, and then that just makes it harder to make a choice.
Yeah. And the cost of that is our anxieties continue to rise.
Yeah, so it's right. It's a self-fulfilling kind of prophecy thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how I understand it.
Yeah. Well, and I've never actually thought diligently about why this happens. I know that it's a thing because, like I said, we have this restaurant thing all the time in our family.
Yeah, well, that's not unusual. I think
Yeah.
many families have the same conversation. Or Christmas presents. What are we going to do about Christmas this year? Any decision, where we're going to go for vacation.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't know where you want to go. What do you want to do? And you just keep throwing up possibilities, and you don't ever commit to something. Because
Mm-hmm.
once you commit to something, you've taken a whole bunch of other things off the table. Well,
Right.
That's for next year or another year.
Well, can I tell you a story then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that you say that, because when you say vacations and all these other domains,
Right.
like what I am realizing is, because you said vacation, I'm like, oh no, I would always defer to my wife and my daughter because they actually have real opinions about that.
But they all also know what categories you're open to.
Sure. But
So
I mean,
if they're going to come in and say, well, we want to go to a cooking class in Australia, if that's going to be our vacation, they know automatically whether or not that's one of the two or three things you'd say, oh, that sounds great.
right. But I also know what they're going to
Yeah,
pick, and I know that I'll just defer to whatever they pick, and that'd be fine. But there are areas where I do have an opinion, and I am very willing to voice that. Restaurant is like the place where, like, I have an opinion. I would always want to go get breakfast, but nobody wants to do that.
Yeah.
So then they say, where do you want to go to eat? And I'll always say someplace where I can get breakfast. And they'll say, well, we don't want to do that. And I'm like, well, then why ask me?
Yeah.
But it's a place where I don't really have a strong opinion, but they're really incapable of making a choice.
That thing's flashing red as it's supposed to be.
Yeah, that
Okay.
means it's on.
All right, well, there you go.
Yeah. It's always done that.
Had to make a choice about whether or not to point that out to you.
Yeah. So I'm wondering, is that where it becomes difficult, is a place where there's a certain amount of ambiguity on all sides? Or do you think I guess there are some people who...
I think it depends on what music is playing, which dance you're dancing.
Okay.
Is it a power-based thing? Who has the authority?
Gotcha.
Who has the power
So
to make
there
a decision?
could be, yeah.
Is it a control-based thing? Are you being stubborn and recalcitrant and refusing to go hunting on the list because you know that's not what anybody else wants to do?
Right.
But do you want to put it on the list so that they know that at least that's what you want to do? And then you can say, if you need to, I'm having a bad time because you said, let's go to this movie, and I don't like this movie. I don't like chick flicks. I wanted to go see a Rambo movie. But none of you want to see Rambo, So I would, people play all these games,
Yeah.
and the dynamics are there. So we're talking about two different things. We're
Gotcha.
talking about the games people play,
Yeah.
but we're also talking about having so many options.
Right,
as
but
a
they're
way
both
of
intertwined.
not choosing. Well, yeah,
Yeah.
they are.
Yeah. Because there's I read a book series called The Wheel of Time, and Amazon just made a series out of that. It dropped last night. I was with my wife, and the whole time I'm sitting there thinking, I want to watch The Wheel of Time.
I'm miserable here with
but I know she doesn't want to do that. And so I watched what she wanted to watch, and I'm going to watch that later today when I'm by myself. But there would be some situations I can see where they would be mopey, and their spouse would say, "Hey, what's going on?" And, nothing.
Yeah.
Because I want to watch The Wheel of Time, and I know you don't want to do that.
Right.
So yes, there is a very real power dynamic that is a part of that.
In therapy with clients a million times. Mm-hmm. If you choose to give a gift of love, as part of the love language conversation, to your wife or husband, to say, I will go with you to see what you want to go see because I love you and I want to be with you.
Right.
Then you cannot charge a price for that.
Exactly.
You can't pout. You can't be angry.
Mm-hmm.
You can't be distracting. You can't get your phone out and play with it.
Right.
Because you'll detract from their ability to enjoy the gift that you've given them.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can't. I remember when I was a child, I was invited by the city council to give a speech to the mayor and the city council on something that was happening at my high school. So I went home and said, I've been invited to talk to the mayor and the city council next month. And my dad had a fit because that meant I had to have a suit. And we didn't have any money, and so we had to go buy a suit. And so we went to the dollar store and bought the cheapest suit that they had, which didn't matter too much about that. But then after that, for months, he would make me pay a price of distress because he would say, well, we could have had the money to get ice cream, but you had to have a damn suit. Or I could have had money to buy whiskey, but you had to have a damn suit. You know? So you extract this price, and it contaminates the gift. So you can't do that.
Yeah. And, one of the places, well, hang on. Let's take our break, and we'll come back and... Hey, Brett.
Yes.
What's your favorite thing about Psych with Mike?
The opportunity to engage in mental gymnastics with you.
Wow, that is really powerful. So,
it's fun.
Do you think that that's beneficial for other people?
I have no clue. I would hope so, but I have no clue.
So people should write us and let us know.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
That would be great.
Especially if they agree with me.
As always, if it's Friday, it's Psych with Mike. So one of the places where I think that this plays out a lot is in sex, in which people all the time, require there to be a price.
Right.
And one guy's moping, or one partner's moping, the other partner's trying to figure out what's going on, because nobody can come right out and say, hey, can we just have sex and not have there be any strings attached to it? But that's a classic in relationships where people are always trying to...
That's one of the games in the book, Games People Play by Eric Burns, called I've Got You Now, You Son of a Bitch. Mm-hmm. So they set them up to, you only want me for sex. No, I love you. I want to be close to you. I want to hold you. But you always just want sex. And I don't always just want sex.
Right.
Well, yeah. And so then she dresses more seductively and wears cutie nightgowns and really stresses against your promise to leave her alone and not touch her.
Yeah.
Until you finally touch her. And she's, I got you.
Right. Well, and why can't both be true? Why can't I want sex and also want to be with you and love you and hold you and coddle you and value you? I mean, I think both those things can be true simultaneously.
Yeah.
But you're right. In the minds of the individuals who are playing the game, those things have to be mutually exclusive.
But then you look at the relationship patterns, and there are areas or domains of influence and power. And often men have the power weapon of money, and women have the power weapon of sex. And so she wants a new washing machine, and he says, we can't afford it.
Yeah.
She wants a vacation to the Bahamas. He says, we can't afford it, but I really want to go there. But we can't afford it. And then he says, I want to have sex. And she says, I've got a headache. Until they find a compromise position. Maybe we can't make it to the Bahamas. Let's go to Mexico.
I guess the reason why then my relationship works is because I've never had any power. So I guess that makes it work better.
Wow. I hope so.
But that's a joke. But one of the things that when I was reading on this that I know happens all the time to me, and I wanted to get your perspective on it, is that both of the references that I had sent you talk about how the more choices that you have,
Yeah.
and you finally make one, what inevitably ends up happening is you spend all of your time worried about
but
all the
what
other
if?
choices
Yeah.
you didn't make.
Right.
And I do that all the time. And why do we do that? Do you have a perspective?
I don't think we've trained ourselves how to be happy. And so we can't let it go. We keep wondering, well, what if? You know, what if I'd married the other girl? What if I'd gone to school in a different state? What if I had gotten a degree in musicology?
Yeah.
Would I have been a happier person?
But I find myself doing
What if
that.
I bought this car?
But I find myself doing that even when maybe the option wasn't within my control.
Yeah.
Right? Like something happens.
I really want to be a brain surgeon.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
And
you have to have a brain.
Well.
Yeah.
And so you can have that experience even when you don't have control of the options. And is there any benefit in that? Is there any, benefit to the individual for ruminating on options that they don't have any control over?
You know, I think there can be.
Okay.
Because
I'm not sure I'm sold on that.
I think if I understand the parameters you're establishing, I think if I can harness that frustration as a motivating force to move in a direction, in order to make those choices, I have to make a better income.
Yeah.
In order to make a better income, I have to have more education. So I need to go to college, or I need to get a degree, or I need to get a certificate that allow me to move up the employment ladder so that I can be in the range of buying a Maserati as opposed to buying a Chevrolet.
Well, but let's use your example of brain surgeon.
Yeah.
Okay, so you want to be a brain surgeon, and let's say that you went to medical school and you passed medical school. You did okay,
Right.
And then you apply for a residency
Can't get
in
one.
brain surgery. You don't get one,
Right.
And so then you spend the rest of your life thinking,
could have been a
"Oh, I
contender."
could have been." There's no benefit in that, right?
No. If that's reality, you have to face reality.
Right. I mean,
Okay,
that
they're not going
option-
to let me be a brain surgeon.
That option was not in your control. And then spending energy for the rest of your life thinking about that, there's not going to be any benefit to that for any person.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Because I see that.
How to teach them to let go of that
Right.
is a question for therapy.
Yeah. And I was just going to say, because I see that all the time in therapy, all of us are doing that. To one degree or another, we're hanging on to these options that we didn't have any control over.
I wanted to be a rock star.
Yeah. But I never learned how to play guitar.
I can't
But I
sing.
could have been a rock star.
I can't sing. And when I was in choir in school, they actually told me, when we go out to do performances, you lip sync. Don't project your voice. Don't actually sing. Just lip sync.
Yeah.
My fantasies of being a rock star, a performer, Simon and Garfunkel type character, went out the window.
You were Britney Spears before Britney Spears
I
was born.
and yeah. So were those two people that did all the lip syncing?
Vanilla Ice?
Vanilla something.
Or Ice
Vanilla. No, Vanilla Ice is a different guy.
Oh.
But yeah, so I made the decision, if you want to do something like that, but you can't do that, how close can you get?
Right.
So I became a radio disc jockey. Mm-hmm. And for a while I got to play music and talk about music and have some connection to the music industry, but I wasn't a star and I was never going to perform. Nobody ever asked me to perform. Or if they did, it meant they listened to me. They were like, never mind.
But you also, though, then spent your career, your early career teaching school, which was a performance, and then became a very well-known, at least around here, but you've even presented internationally, so I would even say international, a very well-known public speaker that people, I know because they've told me personally, find to be incredibly engaging. Do you think that was a part of that? Did you think
absolutely.
that? Okay. Yeah, I do too. Yeah. So, so what do you say to people who are trying to hold on to those options that they didn't have any control over, and you know that that's not helping them?
I think you say the same thing you say to any client. Let's look at your frustrations in your life circumstances and see how problematic that is for you. For instance, if I wanted to be a major NFL star and I don't have the physical capacity to be Peyton Manning.
Feels like a shot, but okay.
If that's what I thought I wanted, and I say, okay, let's make an accommodation to reality here. I can't be an NFL star, but I can coach the local high school team. And then I become an aggressive, absolute, destructive jerk as a high school coach or a dad who never made it. But I've got a son who may have some real capacity and some real opportunity. So I'm grinding him in the ground, making him fulfill my dream to be an athlete. That's destructive. So in counseling, you want to say, are these choices that you're making damaging, interfering with your quality of life and the quality of your relationships? And if they are, can we then find another path that you are willing to take? And that path may involve letting go of some things, learning some new things. But you have to make the choice. And if you don't give it up, if you lie to me all day long. You may be smarter than I am, you may outmaneuver me. But if you don't tell the truth to you and make choices that you can embrace, it's not going to get any better, it's going to get worse.
So really, then this goes back to what you initially were talking about with it depends on how you reinvest the energy.
Yeah.
So that's what you're trying to do, is to get them to take that energy that they're using, holding on to this thing that they never had any control over in the first place, make an evaluation about what they do want, and then reinvest that energy in a way to actually pursue
how can you
a course of action that they could actually have some control over.
If you can't get to A, can you get to B or C on either side of A? Can you be a radio disc jockey or a public speaker if you can't be a singer?
Right.
So, or a musician.
Right. So, but even going though back to, and we can end on this, but going back to the games people play, when we were talking about this whole idea of let's go out to eat, sometimes people use those questions, those options as a game. They know it's a game when they propose it, right?
Yes.
And so they're trying to what? They're trying to benefit because they're trying to have control. They're trying to use it as a way to...
If you go back to Eric Byrne's theories,
right,
what he says is there are always two roles, and what he calls them black and white. He says people play games in lieu of having relationships, as an illusion for having relationships. Always invite other gamers. So I'll go around and find somebody I don't know, and there are moves that I'll make to say, hey, are you a game player? You want to play this game? You want to play this game? And eventually I'll find somebody that's willing to play, because that's how they have relationships, is they play the games. The initiator, by definition, Eric Byrne's theory, the person that starts the game always wins. So the person that agrees to play automatically knows, if they know, they're going to lose.
Yeah.
Why would they do that?
Right.
Well, because you take turns. And so if I'm going to live next door to you and we're going to have a gamey relationship, some days it'll be your turn to win. Some days it'll be my turn to win. And what he says you do is you go through a series of negotiations. You want to play this game? You want to play chess? No. You want to play cribbage? No. You want to play baseball? No. You want to play tennis? Yes. Until we find a game that we can both play. But when we make that decision, whoever started it is already the winner.
Right.
And that's according to his theory, which I agree with.
So the person who says, hey, let's go out to eat, that person is going to win, whether it is that,
if it's a game,
that they're going to gain power by deciding where we go to eat, or they're going to gain the ability to not claim responsibility for a bad meal because you chose the restaurant. Right.
But that's only if they're using a game strategy. So you may say, "Well, I don't care where you want to go eat,"
right?
As a free and open choice, without any leveraging that's going to happen.
Right, but
as a pattern, a repetitive pattern of relationship, you might want to look at that.
Right.
What's the payoff?
Right. So you're saying that not every single relationship, not every single time in every relationship that a person says, "Hey, where do you want to go to eat?" is a game.
Right.
But patterns. There are times when it is a game, and that the way that you determine that is by watching the patterns.
and the payoffs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think that people are, in and of themselves, just walking around, living their lives every day, capable of being able to monitor that?
I think they can learn.
Mm-hmm. But it does require a desire. You have to invest effort, and you have to do that in a way that isn't a game itself. Right?
Or you have to know you're playing a game. I mean, I enjoy playing games with people.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoy stimulating conversations that are going to lead to some outcome.
And you know it's a game when you do it.
Well, yeah.
Okay.
It's a way I entertain myself.
But you don't ever do that. Well, I shouldn't say ever. My experience of you is that you don't normally do that with malice. You don't do it.
Not maliciously.
Yes.
No.
Right.
No, I don't.
Right.
I don't think I do.
I don't think you do either.
Yeah.
I think you do it.
I do it on purpose.
I think you know the theories. I think you know how to manipulate, and so you do it as a way of.
You and I belong to a group of 3 or 4 guys who go skiing trips together. And when we're in the car driving for 14 or 15 hours, I love to just throw a rabbit out that I know one of them's going to chase.
Yeah.
And that'll buy us 20 or 30 minutes worth of entertainment. I do that.
Right.
But I'm not emotionally
it's not
invested
malicious.
in winning.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It's not. No.
Yeah.
I'm invested in being entertained.
And so for people who may not be as adroit at being able to play the game, watching the pattern. So if you have a spouse who is constantly throwing out the red herring, let's go to eat, where do you want to go, but won't make a choice, there may be some benefit that they're getting from that.
Yeah.
It's in your best interest to try and genuinely divine what that is, not just assign malicious intent that just because you're angry.
Sometimes it's just fun.
Yeah.
Like, I don't eat beets. I won't eat them. It's a thing in my family.
I hear you.
So my wife, on a regular basis, when she's planning a menu, says, "Oh, and we can have this kind of beets."
Mm-hmm.
I just laugh at her and said, "No way in hell. I mean, you can have them. You have liver and onion beets.
Sure.
I won't eat, because I don't eat any of those things."
Mm-hmm.
And so she's talking about Thanksgiving in a couple of weeks, and she's like, "Well, we can have beets."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we can have them.
They can be on the table.
Yeah, be there. You can eat all you want.
And people can eat them, whoever wants them.
I won't take
Sure,
them.
absolutely.
Exactly. So because that's a dance we dance, she's jabbing, but with a smile on her face.
But
she's wanting a reaction.
But both of you know that that's a game, and both of you are willing to engage in that game because you experience it as playful.
Yes.
Most people don't know that they're playing games.
That's why they have to pay the
and
therapist.
That's why absolutely.
Got to pay the piper.
Got to be insightful.
Yeah.
All right. Hopefully that was beneficial for people. As always, the music that appears in Psych with Mike is written and performed by Mr. Benjamin DeClue. Please go to the website, michaelmahan.org. Let me know what you think. You can follow us on Facebook and Twitter at Psych with Mike. And as always, if it's Friday, it's Psych with Mike.